Let's talk transition. It's going to deal with transitions of life. How do you deal with it? How do you prepare for it? So, this show is also targeting conversations that have been birthed behind my barber chair. Many of you may or may not know I am a licensed professional, licensed master barber, born and raised in the state of Mississippi. Let's talk about my transition moving here from Mississippi to Tennessee, and now I'm here in Georgia. So many different detours I experienced with that, especially one with the death of my mom, which was a very impactful transition for me having to deal with. Have my brother to share his awesome book, Let's Talk Transition. So let's dive on in this thing. You want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First, I'd like to say thank you for the invitation. Absolutely. I am absolutely excited to be here with you. It's been a while since we've seen each other, so it's like, we're here working, but it's like a reunion too. So I'm glad to see you and happy about the show.
Absolutely.
But ready for after the show where we can, catch up.
Mingle.
We got to mingle. We got to take me around hot down.
Exactly.
So I am Terrance Pryor, of course. I'm from Grenada, Mississippi, born and raised, and now I live in Cordova, Tennessee with my lovely educated wife, Alexandra, and we have 2 children. I got a 2-year-old, Soraya, and I have a 3-month-old, Oren. I can't believe it. I got 2 whole children, two children.
2.
Yeah, so I'm there. I am the.
You gotta get one more.
Oh no, we gonna skip right on past that part.
But that's transition too.
No, they ain't type of transition. You can't talk about it. Let's talk about this type of transition. No, but I am the senior pastor of Kingdom Believers Church in Helena, West Helena, Arkansas. Beyond that, I'm a higher education professional. I work as a academic retention counselor for the University of Memphis, as well as I teach 2 courses at the university. In addition to that, I'm an author, I'm a mentor. So it's several different hats that I wear. And my students and my colleagues often ask me how I do everything that I do. Well, if you have a schedule, a time management schedule, and you know how to divide your time out, then you can do whatever you want to do, in as long as you do what you need to do. So, so basically, that's just. I'm just me. I'm a fun-loving guy. I like to skate, roll, bowl, go to games, hang out with my sweetheart like I'm a teenager, stuff like that.
Come on, I dig life, enjoying life. And again, this show is gonna be pretty much centered around that. How balancing life, spirituality, and the natural side, carrying out our God-ordained purpose.
I'm often asked how I was inspired to write the book, and I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. I had no intent. I've already written 1 book. The first book I wrote was entitled "When Satisfaction Is No Longer Satisfied." It's about being in comfortable spaces in life where you're doing okay, but knowing how to push those limits, how to become dissatisfied with satisfaction. Basically, shifting paradigms is what that particular book is about. When this book came along, as I before mentioned, I had no intentions of writing a book. I was sitting in my office one day and I was going through some transitions in my life, and it was therapeutic for me to kind of jot things down, and I had no idea. I gotta say this, but I think it's Holy Spirit inspired, because when I looked down after writing just a couple of thoughts down, I looked down and I had 5,000 words, and I'm like, oh God, okay, this is a nice little essay. And I just kept on writing because my heart was still full. And 5,000 words turned into 20,000 words, and 20,000 words turned into 30,000 words. So I said, okay, God, I know what you're up to. You're writing a book. Yes. But it's Holy Spirit inspired, basically. But I pastored my church that I pastored for about 6 years in Helena, West Helena, Arkansas. It was a small building, just a small building we were in, and a little building with the wood falling on the side. This is what I like to say. We saw so many miraculous miracle signs and wonders in that particular church. And
I remember.
Yeah, oh wow. It was crazy in that building, And so it came to a point to where there was another pastor that was in town that had a building that I liked. I'll take that back. He got the building at a time where I didn't like the building. And I didn't know who he was, never met him or anything like that. I just heard on word of the street, this particular pastor bought this particular building you all were looking at. I said, oh, okay, cool, because I ain't like it no way. So years went by, and so he ended up finding me, saying to me, well, I'm getting ready to move to another city, Little Rock, Arkansas. And he said, the Lord has led me to come to you and ask you, would you take on the ministry I left here? And so I was like, I'm already pastoring the folk I got already. Right. Like, Lord, you find more folk and a bigger building. And most people get excited about that, but not me, because I realize that through every transition there comes responsibility. Yes. So a lot of people want the blessedness of transition, but they don't want the responsibility that comes along with it. And so, of course, we needed a new building. We had outgrown the building that we were in. And he sat down and we negotiated contracts and deals and things of that sort, and we ended up getting the property for less than half of its value. And so he did all but gave us the building, basically. Wow. And the first time I saw the building, I did not like it. The second time I saw it, when he took me back, he did everything to the building that I would have done. I mean, chairs, screens, projectors, the sound system. I mean, everything that I would have did to the building, he did it. And I didn't have to pay a dime for it. And he not only stopped there, he said, I tell you what, he said, I'm going to leave everything in the building that's there. So everything, the screen, the sound system, the microphones, the fellowship hall, everything.
Sound like a smooth transition.
Oh my God. My God. I mean, God just did that.
Sure.
And so we were getting ready to move into the building, and as you know, that comes with a level of warfare, which is another thing about transition, is what causes us to want to move away from transition is the level of warfare that comes with it. Yes. Because, it's like, I've just learned how to fight these demons over here. I've just learned how to deal with this situation over here. Now you asking me to walk into a whole new situation.
Come on.
I'd rather fight the devil I know than the devil I don't know, and got to learn how to strategically develop warfare against such. And so it came with this level of warfare. People say all kind of things. They don't really know you. I don't live in the city. And so, rumors get out and things of that sort. But I always believe that if you live an integral life, then you don't have to worry about trying to defend yourself. I believe your life speaks for you.
That's good.
And so I lived an integral life. When I became a pastor, when I gave my life to the Lord, I said that I would do that honestly. And I've lived my life that way. And so I'm not worried about skeletons falling out of the closet, or, Mama used to say, let folks say what they want to say, and as long as what they're saying isn't true.
It's true. That's
and so
right.
That came along with it. So I was not only absorbing a building, which now I have 2 properties. I was not only absorbing a building, I was absorbing another membership. Wow. And this came with a musician, 2 musicians, this came with deacons, this came with the whole shebang, It's like, I got going in and figure these folks out and passing people. And so everybody from the Pryor church was excited. I got them on a conference call. I got my team on my staff and on the call, and I let them know everything that was going on. Everybody was excited. Everybody was just, thank God. Yeah, it's a favor of God. Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Come on, excited.
Yeah, everybody was excited. I'm like, okay, because I never do anything without letting the stakeholders of the church know. Yes. I don't run my church like a dictatorship, or I believe those members or parishioners of the church, I believe that just because I'm the pastor doesn't mean I have the right to just make moves. Unless, God leads, but my members trust me to the point, which I say the Lord's members trust me enough to lead the church by the Spirit of God. And so, but I always let them know everything that's going on. Yes. So I was telling them everything that was going on. Everybody was, oh, wonderful pastor, oh gosh, yeah. And so everybody was just excited. And so they were like, when we moving in? When we moving the country? When we moving in? And so I told them, I got with the other pastor, got a date of when we were going to move in. It was actually the first Sunday of December last year when we moved in. And while everybody was shouting and while everybody was just excited and everybody was just ready to move in, here I was sitting in my office like, Lord, what am I walking into? Reality. And I wrote about it in my book. I'm sitting there in the midst of what seemingly should have been an exciting moment, like, God, what is this? What am I going to walk into? And we walked in the building the first Sunday, and when we got in the building that first Sunday, we had a high time in the Lord. You got to be from the deep south to know what a high time in the Lord. Deep. We were shouting, we were rolling, we were doing everything. God just came in, God blessed. We had a couple of good Sundays, then stuff happened. And so let me just be frank with this. I believe that if we're going to serve in the Lord's house, I'm speaking now from the perspective of being a pastor. I'll talk about it professionally in a minute. I believe that if we're going to be servants of the Most High God and we're going to be in the forefront of the ministry, I believe that there's a certain life that you have to live, a certain lifestyle.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that you won't have struggles. I can deal with somebody who's having a struggle versus somebody who's comfortable in what they're in.
Right.
There's a difference. And so as a pastor, a part of my job, adjacent to being loving and kind, is that I have to correct when there is something that's out of order.
Sure.
So there were things that I had to correct, and of course, correction doesn't taste or feel good. And so it caused a rift in my new church, in my new transition with my new membership. Yes, it caused such a transition, it caused such a rift, should I say, that, you know, folks stopped showing up for church. And you know, as a pastor, you gotta leave the 99. You know, you gotta go, and you can't be prideful, because, you know, sometimes you just gotta put yourself in the background, like, okay, what do I need to do for you to understand that I love you? And a part of loving you is when I see you going down the wrong path, or you're doing something that's detrimental to the ministry, I have to correct you. And it's for your betterment. And if you trust my instruction that I'm getting from God, because I can't do it in and of myself. Mm-hmm. If you trust my instruction, then we're all going to be better when this comes out. But that didn't happen. You know, a bitterness set in, and the spirit of offense set in the church, and it started to spread like a cancer. In my new church, with my new membership, with my blessed building that I just got the half of its value, the building and the land. So I cried. I cried. I told my wife, I said, baby, I ain't going, baby. I said, I can go to a church in Memphis. I said, it's 5 minutes down the road, because I live in Cordova, and the church is an hour and 15 minutes away from my house.
Wow.
So I'm like, baby, I could just go and sit down somewhere and just be cool, you know. And she looked at me and she said, well, baby, she said, you can't do that. I mean, if God has not told you to do it, you can't do that. So now I'm mad at her. I'm like, you supposed to be you're supposed to be on my side. You know, I'm thinking you want to stop driving too. You know, chill out, you know. So anyway, she was right. And I had to go and I had to preach, and I had to continue to hold my ground in the church where I knew that there were people sitting in the audience that were offended. I had to continue to preach when there were vital key people in the ministry that weren't on their post. And I had to go back to my training and do everything myself. Push my own recording button. You know, set my own microphone system up. Make sure my own chair is in line. Make sure I had to do all those things myself. And so that's where the writing came from. Because oftentimes when you're in my position, you don't have people you can go to talk.
Release,
vulnerability like that. So I had to be wise about that. And I sat down and I said, well, either this is going to kill me, or either this is going to propel me into something greater. Yes. And that was the choice I had to make. So how do I maneuver through transition? The first thing I do is I become real about what's transpiring.
That's good.
I had to understand that it wasn't a moment to take things personal. I think that's why we miss the rich advantages that come with transition, is that we take it personal. And it's not really about you personally, per se, you.
Right.
It's about what is being ready to be accomplished in you and through you, and for whom it's getting ready to be done for.
That's good.
And I had to lay my life down. Maneuvering in transition is understanding that I have to know what's on the table and what could be the outcome. And I wrote in my book how transition can be your best friend or it can be your worst enemy.
Come on.
It just depends on what your perception of it is. There's a chapter in my book called Transition. And I opened up the chapter talking about how in the world of real estate, there's a mantra, location. And so that particular term in the world of real estate means that it speaks of how the value of a property can increase significantly or drop drastically depending upon its location. If it is a nice building, but if it's in the wrong spot, it drops. And so when I think about transition, it's the same thing. Transition could cause significant increase or drastic decrease, depending on where you located concerning transition in your life. So basically, that's it. I didn't ran down the whole, I told my testimony and ran through 3 chapters of the book, so I'm gonna stop right.
No. What you just said is really good. It made me actually think about something when I moved here. And actually before I moved here, like with transition, I know that as a business owner, some locations I saw that peak where I was geographically, where clients, building, success of the business, everything's booming. Then, say for instance, something happens in the actual salon or the shop, I gotta move, I gotta go to another.
I wrote something down that I wanna go here if I can. When you don't understand transition and how to keep up with the transitions, then you will inevitably end up going through the motions. And going through the motions is simply movement with no purpose, filled with purposeless pursuits. So, in a moment where you're moving like that, the loss of clients isn't really the thing you should worry about.
Come on.
It is the loss of yourself. It is the loss of your purpose. And if I can maintain that, then I can regain my clientele. If I don't lose purpose. Because for barbers, most barbers do it because they're passionate about it. Barbering is an artistry. It is, and I think people miss that because we just go to the barbershop, get our hair cut, and we think it's just self-grooming. But for a barber, it is the barber's art. It's like a book to an author, a painting to Michelangelo. This is what it is, and that's why you come up with endless designs, and you got to make sure your stuff is fresh. Got to make sure the line is just like it needs to be. And so, if you lose that, you ain't got to worry about losing your clients. That's gonna happen. It is keeping a sense of the purpose and the passion for which you started it. Because if you don't, you will end up going through the motions. If you think about it, I wrote further to say, one claim that those who feel that they're going through the motions have is that they say that they lost themselves somewhere along the way. See, we have to make sure that as we are moving, remember going through the motion is just me being carried along. When we are being moved like that, we keep ourselves reminded of the purpose and infused with that particular passion because we want to maximize the movement. Now I got to take a moment. Okay. When I maximize the moment, I'm not just being carried along by time, but I am accomplishing while I'm moving.
Yes.
See what I'm trying to say?
Good.
And it may not be something that is seemingly paramount to someone else, but if you are moving from a shop, say as a barber, something goes wrong and you have to move on the shop. Setting the chair up in your kitchen the next day to make sure you got your clients that it still get taken care of, although there's a bump in the road, is momentous. To somebody else, it's not, oh, she's just getting it. But that's not really. It is you protecting the passion and protecting the purpose for which you started. And that is what happens. It happens in relationships, marriages. It happens all the time. Some marriages, my marriage is 5 years old. We've been together for 7 years. And there's a couple at my church that's been married for 35 years. And it's often asked, well, how do you counsel these people? And they come for counseling. And well, how do you do that? And I figured it out. The Holy Spirit allowed me to know. That seeing us and the advice that we're giving them reminds them of them before the children, before the house, before the careers, before everything. And so it is imperative for us to remember that foundational piece because it's strong enough to carry you through. If you can tear this entire building down, but if it got a good foundation, you can architect another design and build a whole nother structure. And that's all that it is. It just transition is moving from one form to another. And that's basically what it is. So to your question, that's my response.
You hope me. You definitely hope me as the whole
Well, I hope you.
Because honestly, I can honestly say through a lot of the transitions that I experienced as a professional, I kind of almost did lose myself. But it was in those moments of defeat where I gained that momentum and had that, I guess, that awakening of purpose. That was kicking and leaping on the inside, saying, no, you got to keep going. You got to keep pressing through this. Even if it did, just like you said, setting the chair up in my kitchen.
Right.
No, purpose still has to go forth no matter
No
what.
matter what. And anything.
Yeah.
That's in anything. That's from a spiritual perspective. That's from a professional perspective. That's from a universal
Broad,
perspective.
yes.
You know, I think that just what you were saying, that is how you embrace transition.
Let's talk about that.
That's how you take advantage of the rich advantages of transition. Because all transition is a transaction.
That's all.
It's a transaction. It's an exchange from the old to the new, or from good enough to improved. It's just an exchange between the two, basically. And we don't realize that. We just think, you know, there's an old song, life is filled with transition.
You so silly. You make me silly. We brothers.
No,
I was thinking about that the other day when we was getting ready to tell you. Yes, the old folks you showed us that.
But I think you miss that because life is filled with transition.
It is.
It's filled with it. And let me tell you something. They are inevitable, and sometimes they are swift, and sometimes they're slow. And that's what gets us. Is that the timing just depends on whatever season it is in your life. And it's hard for us to, when you have your own desires and what you think stuff should look like and what society has dictated it should look like, and when you got friends around you that look like they're doing better than you, you get all this stuff in, and it kind of takes you away from that. But transition is inevitable, but if you can keep up with the transitions, you can win in life. Winning in your life is really keeping up with transitions, understanding what time it is. Okay, let me give you an example. I wrote in this book, I'll get to some quotes in just a second. I wrote in the book about how if you don't know what season it is, you would not be able to take advantage of the season. If it's winter time and you don't know that it's winter, you will mess up and go outside with some shorts on. And like the old folks say, all your little hams get cooked, but we ain't cut all your little hams. But if I know that it's winter outside, then I can dress for the occasion. So I can maximize the heat, and vice versa. So it's important to understand what season it is, and I'm speaking of transition because they all change.
Yes.
When I understand the transition, I can dress properly. I can put on the right gear. I can prepare myself correctly. When I understand transition, I can embrace it. I can get an advantage out of it. The transition is so powerful that it can leave you bitter or it can leave you better. It just depends. It really, really depends on your perception of it. Yeah, it's just the truth. You got a lot of folk walking around now where there are rich relationships that should have never ended, or rich relationships that are in heat, just because you got two people who have no real perception of what transition is all about. When God revealed that to me, it was like, oh, I had to repent of some stuff. I really did, because again, I think I'm jumping ahead of myself, because I wrote a chapter in the book called Capacity, and we'll talk about capacity in a minute. And I talked about how capacity is just your ability to receive. It is your ability to handle something, basically. And that's what transition does. It stretches your capacity when you understand it and the mechanics of transition. It stretches your capacity. And so I said that anytime somebody is allowed entrance into your life, you should always leave room for their growth.
For their growth. Come on.
And they leave room for yours.
Yes.
Because how you met me is not necessarily how I'm going to always be.
Yes.
Because where I am is not where I'm going to end up.
Yes. And then that shows balance.
Yes, I've got to be. When I have capacity in transition,
yes,
I can deal with you when you're the pole person, and I can deal with you when you're worldwide.
Yes.
That's what capacity does.
Yes.
And I think that there's a mutual thing that is missing from relationships, because the minute somebody grows beyond where we know them, we upset with them. And most people's problem is they're comfortable with the version of you that they're comfortable with. And it's not, and the reason I say this, and why it's very imperative for us to understand is this. Everybody ain't a bad person. Some people just don't have the capacity to manage your growth, to handle your growth. But
you put a pin right there. I almost took out running.
But it's true. It's true. And so So let me go here. When you are focused on transitioning and growth and all of this in your life, you should have something on you that commands and demands them to come up. But you know what we do? I ain't got time for that. Ain't nobody still the same person no more. Ain't nobody on it. It's not always that. We cause more friction when we do that. Yes. We should always have the capacity to call somebody up. Those who have good hearts and they're in the right place, they'll come up. Mm-hmm. The ones that don't really want to will stay there. And that is just revelation for you.
Yes.
That's revelation for you.
Yes,
but by any chance, nobody that you love and consider yourself in a close relationship with, should you leave them there without giving them the opportunity to come up and to say, hey, this is the way.
That's good.
When you understand transition, you understand it.
Yeah.
When you understand it, that's just something that comes along with it, you know. So.
I'm just digging a little bit.
No, I was just. Oh, we're gonna do capacity.
Yeah,
I wrote in my book this.
While you're there, you might as well go ahead and attack it real good.
Okay, all right. So I wrote capacity. Just one sentence. Capacity assists you with treasuring memories, but respecting, embracing, and appreciating growth. I say it again. I said it again. We was in the church. I say it. I'm gonna say that again. I'm gonna say it again. Capacity assists you with treasuring memories, but respecting, embracing, and appreciating growth. Treasuring memories, which means that I can treasure the memory without making you the same Mika that was with me when I was 11 years old. We treasure the memories.
Yes.
But while treasuring the memories, I respect that you joined. I'm gonna call you Shamika anyway.
See, you gonna date him.
Yeah. Right. So I respect it, I embrace it, and I appreciate the growth.
Yes.
That's called capacity. That is called capacity. This is why you shouldn't get upset with people when they don't get the new version of you. When they don't get the new version of you, they don't understand the new version of you. Don't get upset. They don't have the capacity to contain or manage who you are, so it drives them crazy. They don't know what to do with the new you, the one that they could call and gossip with. But all of a sudden, you say, you know what? I'm not feeling that. Let us pray. Wait, you know what you're talking. You see, who are you to change? Who told you? Who? And see, I gotta hit this.
Uh-oh.
Some people act as if you need their permission to grow. And we get stuck in the prison where we're looking for somebody else's permission to grow.
Yeah, y'all just cut the tapes right here.
Yeah, I'm serious.
It's over now.
And it's stagnating. It's stagnating, and it causes a type of mental, spiritual paralysis, and even professionalism, where you're just paralyzed. You're just there because you're looking for permission to grow. Because you don't understand. If you don't understand transition and the person you are that's in your circle don't understand, then you can have all kind of problems. That's why I wrote a chapter called Transition Team. But we ain't gotten into this yet. Can I go on?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Continue, man. Continue.
So I said, it drives me crazy. So don't waste precious time in disagreement with them. Instead, watch this, make every attempt to try to help them increase their capacity.
Wow. So you
Yes,
even
yes, because see, we throw away people who love us. And see, this is unpopular because like, yeah, I don't believe in that, forget that, you know, whatever. No. If you dealing with somebody that really has a heart for you and you know it.
Come on, and you know it.
Yeah.
And you know it.
You have to make the attempt to increase their capacity because when you understand transition and the capacity that is produced by transition, then you walk in a type of knowledge, a type of experience, a type of know-how to help others increase. And that's what my job is. Every day I do it with my students. I do it with my parishioners at the church. I do it in business. I do it. I help people. Yes, and it's in demand because people want to know, how do I get from one moment to the other? We'll talk about that too in just a second, I hope. We'll get there. So help them increase their capacity. You should never leave your place to go down to where they are.
Wow.
Unless you intend on bringing them up. always
Say that one more
call
time. That was
them.
good. That was good. One more time.
You should never go down to where they are unless you will intend on bringing them up. Always call them up. Always.
Tell them what
Always call them up. See, the reason I say go into where they are, and most people say, well, no, you don't do, no, because if I'm in Atlanta and I say, Shamika, I'm in Atlanta, and I say, I want to come and see you, the first question you got to ask me is, where are you? Because you can't take me nowhere unless you come to where I am.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is about, is that you got to go to where they are. You
Yes.
got to, and sometimes you can't directly say it to them. Well, you ain't got the capacity for my growth. No, you can't just walk up and say that. That's going to cause them to become offended, and offense always shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get them to come to a revelation or reality, whatever you want us to call it, a revelation or a reality within themselves where they go, and I have people apologize to me all the time.
Wow.
It don't make me no difference. I'm not on a house like, okay, cool. I'm just glad you're here. I've had people say, well, Terrance, I just didn't know how to handle this. I just didn't know. And my response is simply, I knew, I understand, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to this level. Let's grow. Let's go, let's grow. So that's basically it.
That's such a refreshing. Be on that note too.
Yeah.
Handling that situation.
Yeah, that's how you do it, because it's not about that, because you will miss another transition.
Mm-hmm. So resolve
Yeah,
conflict.
because we spend too much time. See, we spend too much time putting emphasis where emphasis is not required.
Mm-hmm.
Too much time, so we miss it. So by the time we get something straight, we done missed all type of moments in our lives. What if I had not been in a position to assume the new building? If I had not prepared the parishioners of the church and I had not gotten everybody ready for transition, we would have not been prepared to take on something that we've been waiting on and praying for. I ain't trying to preach, but that's just who I am.
No, you fine. You ain't.
Okay. So in Isaac, in the book of Genesis, Isaac is over in Genesis 26 is a great place to talk about really capacity and dealing with people who have to have capacity to do with your growth. And I'm going to go back, and there's a quote at the beginning of the chapter in my book that I want to read so you can understand how I arrived at this particular point. So in Genesis 26, Isaac, who is the son of Abraham, so he is in Gerar, and he's here because there's a famine in the land. There was a famine in the land, and when you roll a few chapters back, Abraham went down to Egypt when there was famine in the land, and God sustained him there. That's where he lied about Sarah being his sister. Well, Isaac actually repeats the same exact steps that Abraham did. He lied about Rebekah not being his wife. Abimelech, in Genesis 26, in that particular chapter, Abimelech, in that particular text that is dealing with Isaac, would have been the son of the Abimelech that dealt with Abraham. So it's cool because it's like you're watching the sons of these two people reenact this entire, part of their lives. And so he's down in Gerar, and then what gets me is that when the chapter opens, it says that God says to Isaac, go, I don't want you to go to Egypt like your daddy did. I want you to go down to Gerar. And for the life of me, I could not understand, why is God sending this dude in a time of famine to a land that's famine? It just didn't add up. It didn't make sense to me. It's like, why just send him somewhere that's plenty, or just make food sprout out of the ground where he was. And so God is sending him down to Gerar. He goes down there, but there's a key word, there's an operative word in that particular text. When the third verse, I think, opens up, it uses a word that is very operative, and that word is sojourn. And when you look at the word sojourn, this particular word, whether it's in its Hebrew construct, its Greek construct, as well as its English construct, means to go somewhere temporarily. It's a temporary habitation. It's temporary refuge, which when you get the biblical understanding that where I am is not where I'm going to end up. It may be dry, but it won't be this way always. Okay. So I'm looking at the text, and so He's there, and he's lying about Rebecca being his wife, and the Bible says Abimelech was looking out the window, and he saw Isaac sporting with Rebecca. And so he perceived that Rebecca was actually Isaac's wife. And so he called Isaac and said, man, you lying. In layman's terms, just paraphrasing. He says, this your wife, man. He's like, well, yeah. He said, man, you realize trouble we could have got us in if somebody that touched your wife? And he said, I tell you what, anybody that touched him or his wife, I got him. And then the Bible says something very key. He said, then Isaac sowed. But by the 12th verse, it said Isaac sowed. But when you open the chapter, it said that there was a famine. It didn't make sense to sow in famine, but Isaac sowed. And so when you pull the Hebrew construct of the word sow, you go beyond just scattering seed till you get the understanding that he worked the ground and he invested in the ground, dry ground. Which brings us to this particular, which brings us to the understanding that in transitional moments, because this guy would have had his father's inheritance. You go from wealthy, blessed, all that Abraham had, to then you got to plow in a dry land. But he understood the transition because God is saying, okay, I'm getting ready to establish a covenant with you. I'm going to make an oath with you. So I'm going to take you down here and I'm going to show you who I am. Because the whole chapter is about God establishing the covenant of Abraham with Isaac, the continuance of the covenant. Because the covenant didn't die with Abraham. And that's what God wants us to understand in transitional moments. Because people leave, it don't mean the promises died. It don't mean that I can't reconstruct whatever I need to reconstruct. And it don't mean that I don't have anything greater. Although the friendship died, or the job died, or come on somebody. Don't mean, it means that I can further my covenant because the DNA of my covenant is divine. It is eternal. It's continuous.
Point blank.
Yes. And so he's establishing this particular covenant with Isaac. But after God tells Isaac, I'm going to be with you. Don't worry about it. I got you. He went from a high spiritual experience in lying. He went from that to lying about his wife. So, because he was trying to protect his own life. And that's what fear for his life set in. So he became crafty and cunning within himself and came up with a deception to try to protect himself when God had already said, I got you. And in moments of transition, the problem that happens is fear comes in the door. Fear is an onset of transition that fear always accompanies transition. So fear comes in because fear wants to feel the capacity that's designed for growth. So growth don't happen because fear is sitting in its seat. Growth can't sit down because the capacity has been filled by fear. And so you go to lying and trying to come up with stuff on your own and trying to make something happen. When actually, if you trust the transition, it'll bring you to where you need to be. So he he makes that transition, and so he gets down to Abimelech protecting him. Then he goes to where he sows. He works, he invests the ground. And the Bible said he reaped 100-fold harvest because he sowed. Now, 100-fold harvest would have been really, really good in a regular season. But this dude, in a famine season,
dry land.
Not only did he make a barren land pregnant. Not only did he make a barren land pregnant, it produced more than what it would during a regular season.
Multiply.
Because in time of transition, he didn't hold on to the seed.
Wow. He released.
In transitional moments, he didn't shut his gift down. He didn't say, I ain't at the shop no more. Well, I'm going to take my clients. Wow. He said, I'm a sow. Then he started to redig his father's wells. First well he dug, he named it Isaac. Second well he dug, he named it Sitna. Isaac means contention and strife. Sitna means the same, opposition, contention, strife. Because the Philistines got jealous because he started to grow.
Wow.
And so Abimelech eventually tells him, look, dude, you got to go.
Because it started growing.
He said, you become, the Bible say, he became so great. Genesis 26. You became so great, we got to get you from around us because you're becoming greater than we are.
Wow.
But here's the key. Here's the key. You know what Isaac did?
What did you talk to?
He packed his bags and he left. Why are we begging people to stay in places that they're trying to evict us from. We are enemies of our own growth. And it shows us how sometimes in life situations, we get so comfortable and so stuck, and we want to be protected by something so bad that situations will happen, and God will allow things to happen to where the situation spits you out because you ain't got sense enough to leave yourself.
Yes.
And I'm doing this, and it feels terrible. It feels horrible. But I got to spit you out, because if I don't spit you out, you'll stay here, and what you got will run out. But where I'm taking you to a place to where you will continue to produce.
And you're going to flourish. Wow.
Isaiah says it. Isaiah said, have I brought you to the birthday so you won't bring forth? Did I bring you to the point of breakthrough? To not give you breakthrough?
Come on.
No. I didn't bring you to the point of birthing so you couldn't bring forth. I brought you to the point of birthing so you can bring forth.
Yes. That's awesome.
The Lord asks them in Isaiah, said, can I bring forth a nation in one day? He will supernaturally accelerate you when you trust divine transition. Yes. This is how it happens. And so the Bible says, it goes on, he digs a well called Rehoboth. The Lord has made room.
Yeah.
So the contention and the strife pushed him to, the Lord has made room. Wow. God didn't intend for us to stay there.
Wow, your gifts are made what?
Room. Wow. He made room. Wow. Because Abraham was wealthy. He was wealthy. He had no lack. So this particular mentality and mindset transpires or runs down to Isaac. How do you maintain a prosperous mindset in a dry situation? You have to let what's in you make what's without accommodate what's in you.
Man, I almost took off running again.
It has to. It has to. You have compensated and accommodated for everything. But it is a time and a season in transition for which what is without has to accommodate what is within.
Come on.
That's it.
That's great.
And I'm learning that. I've learned that, and I am learning that. I'm learning that. I'm learning. It doesn't come without tears. It doesn't come without heartache. It doesn't come without wishing and hoping the people that you love the most could understand and be in the place with you.
With you, yes.
But what is the cost? What is the trade-off cost? Embracing transition. You embrace it. Embracing transition is like the salve on a, or if you're from the country, sass. You know what that is. See, I said salve, you were like, huh? I said salve, you were like, yeah.
I know what you're talking about now.
It eases. It's the bone that eases and heals the man.
Yes.
That's really what you get, like they say you got balm and stuff from Gilly. Is there balm in Gilly? Yeah. So, but can I go with this particular quote that I wanted to do for you? This moment? Okay. I'll read this a little bit. I was teaching a Bible study class one night, and when I got to the end of the lesson, I was asked the following questions concerning transition. How do you handle or manage the old you and the new you in transition? What do you do with the struggle of people having an issue with who you are becoming as you are growing in your faith? These were very good questions, I thought at least. I began to address the first part of the question by explaining that you don't answer the old you in a new season. Let me explain what I mean by this. Attempting to let the old version of you think or dictate to the improved you is like my 1.5-year-old daughter attempting to wear my clothes. Too large clothes can be just as uncomfortable and problematic as too little clothes in the aspect of the extra material tripping you up and getting in your way. I'm not saying that the old version of yourself won't fight against the new and improved, but it's likely that it will. However, it cannot fit the new clothes that you are wearing because you have grown from the point that you were once at. Get my point? If the old version of you attempts to wear what was designed to accommodate your growth, then it will trip you up and get in your way every time.
Every time.
Every time. Every time it will. So, it is imperative for us to understand that because we can get in our own way, especially where transition is concerned. You'll think something is wrong with you changing and growing.
Conjuring up stuff in your mind, mentally.
Yep.
A whole mental
you gotta know it.
going on.
You gotta know it. So, that's what capacity is about. When my beautiful daughter was born, the most beautiful thing I ever seen in my life, besides a mama. have here. And you know I got a pregnant twice. Logic.
We learned that at the beginning of the show.
Yeah. I'm trying to stop though. But anyway. But
Come get it.
but I knew that, and I wrote about it in the book. It's amazing. When she came into the world, although she was an infant, then toddler, I knew that she would not always remain there. And that's some of these parents' problems, so I hope they're listening to us. Is that I knew that although she was an infant and a toddler, and she's my daughter, one day she's going to be a girlfriend, a fiance, and a wife. And I can't mistreat the young man that loves her because I don't have the capacity to understand. And it doesn't mean that she won't always be my baby girl. But I have to respect, appreciate, and embrace her growth.
That's right.
It makes sense when I say that?
Makes perfect
And so
sense.
I wanted to say that because it makes it simpler to understand what I'm saying is that's what it is. You know, it's not you ain't your, you're 30 years old, she ain't your baby no more. She's your baby in your heart. But stop telling her something wrong with everybody she trying to build something.
Yes.
You know, she feel imprisoned and feel like she cannot because you put these parameters up because you have insecurities within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, concerning capacity. You know, all you can do is pour in the principles and all the things that you need to pour in. Now, no daddy won't think about that girl getting married. Now, I don't put it out front. Nobody won't think about no young man breathing down my daughter's neck and carrying on. You know, I don't think about that. You know, but in the same token, I know that when I met her mama,
you had a flashback.
I had a flashback. Yeah, and see, but thank God, my prayer has to be not that she don't. Oh Lord, don't. My prayer is, Lord, give her somebody that will love her, like her daddy loves her mom.
Absolutely.
Give her a God-fearing person. Give her a good person that will treat her right and do the right things.
And not only that, she's discerning within herself with everything that you and your wife have taught her.
Yep. And
y'all have to allow her to use that.
And we're giving her the room to grow.
Mm-hmm.
She's a toddler. She don't run through the hotel stuff. She run into my walls all the time. Anybody know me? I'm a neat freak. I just don't like. I clean the baseboards and everything in my house. I just don't. My wife take me all day. When I say clean up, she don't participate in those. Cause it take me all day. And you can't clean up to satisfy me. You need to hire somebody to clean up. No. Well, they professional. No. You can't clean up like I clean up. And so,
Recipient.
Right. And so she just, my daughter, and my walls in my house are light, and I have an exposed stair banister at my house with white stairs. And she running and stuff, scratch stuff up. And I hate marks on the wall. Ooh, Lord. I'm about to sweat everything. But she's a toddler. And I had to say, Terrance, calm down. Give her the room to be who she is. Now, she a teenager running around scratching my walls, that's another story. But capacity helps you put that stuff in perspective.
Yes.
Stop whooping each other and let them run. They gonna scratch stuff up. Stop whooping them, be kids.
Right.
Hush. You tell them right.
Wait one more time.
Hush. Didn't know who you are. Hush. I guess. Right.
Come on.
And so, you give them that room and space to, and my daughter's loud. She be singing and stuff. And I laugh and play with her because she's a toddler. So I'm just talking in this fact. I'm just trying to make it elementary when it comes to capacity.
Right.
You will save your nerves because you keep trying to convince yourself in your mind that this 2-year-old little person here gonna act like an adult. And they ain't.
Come on.
And you stressed out because your mind wrong. They 2 years old. They gonna want some juice. I'll just clean. Let me say this real quick time. I was telling my wife, and
that's good because we got teens and children.
Right.
They need it.
So I was telling my wife and my assistants. I was telling my assistant and his wife. They have a daughter. Her name is Kanaya.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was getting ready to pack the bag because I didn't know I was going to drive my truck. I was packing the bags in my truck. And so I don't ever ride in the third section of my truck ever. And every now and then I get to ride in the back of it. Rarely. I would like to ride in the back of it. I ain't got no chauffeur yet. But anyway. Right. And so I was cleaning out the truck. I got ready to put the bags in, and there was so much sticky stuff, animal crap. Everything she ever had since she came into the world was in the back of that car. She was saving for a family. My carpet was dirty. Oh no. My carpet was dirty. It was stuff that you couldn't just like wipe up real quick. I sat out there and I told them, I said, look, your daughter and my daughter owe me a new truck. Forget cleaning. Look, just give me a new truck. But she got all kind of stuff back there, and I'm like, come on, dude, what's up with this? Ain't I been a good dad? And my wife ain't driving the truck, so my wife ain't saying nothing like you. So my point is, I just laughed because it was like, Lord, they cheering, and she just got stuff scattered everywhere, and somebody would have beat. She got crackers and stuff everywhere. She's 2 years old, so hey,
She's 2.
Yeah, I mean, I can tolerate it, not necessarily I like it, but I got the capacity to let her be a kid, basically. So.
And you understand the capacity she's in.
Yeah, right now, that's just who she is. She gonna bounce all over you. She's
stressed out.
Yeah, because honey, get some rest. The child ain't studying about your rest. Pulling wipes out, throwing wipes at good, I got 2 children. You know how many wipes I gotta buy? You see her throwing them out. She don't care about your bank account. Far as she concerned, it don't run out. Dragging good pampers through the house, girl. Well, we got the good pampers with the indicator on. We buy the expensive stuff. Thanks to her mom. We buy the expensive. We can't get the cheap. She wanna go. I don't want the indicator. Just check her. You see, she can pee that.
Okay.
And she got nerve to be dragging the pamper through the house. Look, you put these hot tail pampers down. How we get over there?
I don't know.
It's the truth.
It's your fault.
It's true, dragging that stuff around. She don't care about no bank account. And it would be unfair of me to try to, she don't care. She don't know nothing about it. She don't have the capacity to even start to understand. And that's how you
have been absolutely great. You have been absolutely great, man. Everything that you've said has been you've given us a lot, but it's not all that he has in this book. So y'all make sure you patronize and support this amazing book. It will bless your life. You have already blessed mine, and I'm sure some of the people, our guests that we have here today. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, we have one.
So I was gonna say, what if any? I guess for those that are new to transition, what would you say would be like good practices and things for, I guess, when you go through transition? Like, what are good ways you can successfully go through transition? I would say.
I think the first thing that you're going to have to do is realize its nature. Number one, and I'm going to do some practicality with that, so I'll drive it home. I wrote this so you can understand its nature. We must understand that from a spiritual or natural perspective, the environment, atmosphere, and or the very nature of transition is spiritual.
Mm.
Be it divine or diabolical. Its nature, its DNA, what it's made of, it is spiritual. Be Buddhist, Muslim, agnostic, whatever you may be, Christian, whatever, Jehovah's Witness, whatever you may be, transition is spiritual.
That's awesome.
Let me explain. And I'm going to use a biblical precept to drive this point, but nonetheless, it's a principle for everyday life. Hebrews 11:3 says this: through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. So what we see did not come from stuff we saw prior to seeing what we see. Make sense? So your business, marriage, education, etc. started in your mind as a divine idea, right? Something that you could see but didn't see at the moment. With me? Mm-hmm. Your task is to move what is unseen into tangibility. To move what is unseen into tangibility. So that there's strategy that's developed and implemented to do so. So if you're going to move what you don't see, what is in your mind that you don't tangibly see, to tangibility, from intangibility to tangibility, you got to develop strategy, and not only develop strategy, but you got to implement strategy. Because one of the stagnating points of transition is that we develop strategy, but we just develop strategy. We got to move from developing strategy to implementing strategy. Okay? Transition transpires as a change that happens internally in your heart and mind that repositions you in your current situation and prepares you for what is to come. So basically, when I understand the nature of it, how do I move from one point to the other? First of all, I understand that transition is spiritual. I understand that it is what it is. I'm not in denial about where I am, nor am I in denial about where I want to go.
Wow.
That's key. Then you have to develop strategy based upon what it is that you are that you feel the purpose within yourself to achieve. Number one. So then the other thing is this: after you've gotten opinions, after you've read books, after you've gotten counseling, you got to go back home to yourself, and there has to be a decision made within yourself. It has to be an honest conversation with yourself about it. You know, I ain't got no deep philosophical understanding, no magical incantation about it. It's just something you got to do within yourself. And whatever it is that you want, if I want to own a business, how do I do that? I need to find do I have the wherewithal to do it? I need to find the literature, the resources, find a business professor, find somebody who has a business, who has the type of business like I want to have. What can I do? What about my business is going to be unique to me? What am I trying to accomplish? It takes all of that. It takes all of that to do transition. So you have to stay motivated. You have to have the right attitude and the right mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'll say, can I?
Yeah.
Let me go just a second further.
Okay.
Last year, when I've been on the job, I've promoted to this position a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to promoting to the position that I'm in now at the University of Memphis, I was working downstairs, and so I was looking for somebody else's job. I'm always pushing other people. Sometimes I'm so used to, doing for other people. Sometimes I put myself in the background. My wife says it all the time. You always shopping. You quick to spend money for somebody else. Well, you gotta buy something for yourself. You gotta think about it. And I noticed that that's what I do. But I was put on earth to serve, and that's what I do. So I was sitting I was in a cubicle down. I was working as a financial aid officer at the University of Memphis. When the job came open, I had 3 people that worked in the same space I worked in. And so I was telling them about the job because I wanted it for someone else. Mm-hmm. But it required a master's degree. They didn't have a master's degree. And so when I was telling them about the description of the job, they were like, Terrance, that perfectly fits you. And so I was like, I may apply, whatever. And then I had actually collaborated and worked with the office because I developed a program where I was working with the office that had the position open. And their director was getting ready to retire like a month or 2 later. So I was like, I may apply, I may not apply, or whatever. It would have been a $13,000 raise from where I was, and I was already good. So there's a girl that works in my office that said, she said, Terrance, she said, I want to say something to you. I said, okay. And she's 40 years old. She said, Terrance, she said, you've mastered this down here. She said, you're down here twiddling your thumbs. She said, you can come here and not do nothing for a whole 2 days. Come on the 3rd day and do everything you need to do with perfection.
Wow.
She said, what else is there for you to learn here? She said, I said, well, the flexibility down here, I kind of go as I please. She said, Terrance, she said, that's really a poor excuse. She said, you're too intelligent for that.
Wow.
That is what made me apply for the job. I applied for the job and found out that the director wanted me.
Wow.
I got hired. I was the fastest hire in their office.
Oh,
it usually takes a while going through HR. The director called and pushed my paperwork through.
Come on.
She pushed my paperwork through. It got blocked in HR because I have 2 master's degrees and working on a doctorate at the moment. One of my master's degrees weren't on file at the University of Memphis. And so she calls, he has little Caucasian line. He has a master's degree. So I sent my transcript over. And she got me in that office fast. And there was a $13,000 raise. I was there. I came in the door working like a horse. Still working like a horse. Not only have I raised it in a year's time, I went from a $13,000 raise to now, a year later, I just got financial statements from HR. Every year we get a fixed raise of 1%, and there's another 1.5 you can get based upon merit. So I've gotten it. So in a year's time, I went $13,000, and I've raised it a little over $2,000 more dollars. Wow. So if I continue to do what I'm doing, then I'll continue to climb up the ladder.
Yes.
But I was fearful of the position because it required more than what I was doing. I'm making sense. That transition was like, Lord, I got flexibility. I can come and go. I moved from that to my own office. Wow. I moved from a nice cubicle, to now my own nice office. And I'm ready now. That I used to be afraid to be a director, but if a directorship position comes open, I'm prepared.
If you don't mind, tell your age. How old?
I'm 28 years old.
28 years old.
Yeah, 28 years old.
And it's just like favor just fell in your lap.
Well, it's like Isaac. The increase didn't come without the work.
Come on.
Because people say, well, you don't need God if you do the work. No. God blesses the work. He blesses the work. And that's what he did. I'm not doing anything different from anybody else who's taking my path. Yes. But I trust God. Yeah. When I was in undergrad, people say, yeah, we getting all these degrees, and people tell you how many thousands of people are getting the same degree you got, and it's gonna be hard for us. Y'all getting just a degree. I got a degree in faith.
That's it.
I graduated in May and I had a job by August. Wow. I sure did. I just trusted God. I always believed in having a competitive advantage. Yes. And the competitive advantage that I have is that I have crazy faith. I just believe God. That's good. And that's where I learned transition, because I had you can look at me and tell there were moments I had to sleep in my car. You can look at me and tell me there were moments I didn't have something to eat. You can look at me and tell what I've been through as a young man. Come on. But I trusted the train. I cried and said, okay, God, I'm sleeping on this office floor. I'm sleeping in this car. But you know what, God? It won't be this way always. Yeah. And I kept telling myself that. And the little crazy man on the inside of me believed it. Yes. And that's why this came about, because I want to help you maneuver through the transitions of your life.
Okay, before we close out, we just want to see, is there any more questions?
Let's have one.
Okay.
So I think one thing you just touched on is knowing how to move out of complacency, but like, how do you know when God is telling you it is time to transition versus like, should I stay in this and try to figure it out, or try to, work on what it is, whatever the situation is, until it improves? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It depends. It depends on whether you are trying to get out or whether the situation is trying to put you out. Mm-hmm. It depends on the both, because sometimes we can get irritated and tired, and we can think we deserve more. And that irritation tries to motivate us. Yeah. And what drives what is driving the moment of transition is what makes a difference. That's how I know. When everything I was going through, I walked into it by no real will or intention of my own. I walked into it and I was like, okay. And the situation kind of told me. But then there were other times whereas you, within yourself, you'll know when you're in a situation that's getting difficult. And the situation is trying to tell you to leave, but it really ain't time to leave yet. Yeah. And you know that you know it because the connectivity and the heart and the burden for where you are doesn't leave. Wow. It doesn't leave, and it's not an emotional burden. Mm-hmm. Like being with somebody that you've been with, and all of a sudden it's over and you got to go on. It ain't like that. It's not like that at all. It's like you carry, when you're walking into a situation where you transition into and you're supposed to be up there, there's a burden. I don't want to be a pastor. Can I tell the secret? Can I let the cat out the bag, please? I ain't want to pastor nobody, and I still don't want to pastor nobody, but I have for 7 years. Yeah. And I've been trying to find every way to get out of it. I'm being honest. Yeah. And I know my mother's going to kill me when they see this. But it's the truth. I've been trying to figure out what I tried to quit. But I'm reminded of Jeremiah. Come on. Jeremiah, God called this young man to prophesy. Mm-hmm. And see, when you have gifts and there's difficulty, it puts you in a perplexing situation where you got to choose whether to follow your myth, your emotions, or follow the purpose of why you're there. So let me make sense. He has this gift where he has to prophesy. He's prophesying. Every time he prophesied, he get beat down. They throw him in the stocks even. He got down in the stocks and said, "Look, I ain't saying not a word in your name. I'll mind my business. I'll mind my business." What do you do when what you are anointed for is a burden to you? What do you do when your love for God brings you into a situation of persecution? What do you do? He was there in the stocks. He said, "God," he said, "I'm not going to say another word in your name because it has got me in trouble." He said, but this is what he resorted to. He said, "If I could quit, I would. But it's just like fire.
Come on.
Shut up in my bones."
Yes, sir.
In other words, I want to, but the fire just won't go out.
Come on.
And that's how that particular situation works. Is that in as long it is not in and of yourself, you know you're in the right spot. But if you're in a position where you're trying to make a way out, you need to check it. But if everything in the situation is telling you it's time to go, when Abimelech came to Isaac and said go, he packed his bags and left. We begged to stay places. We been cool, man. It been cool around here. No. When you're following divine transition, the seasons announce themselves.
Yes.
You don't have to tell me when it's winter. It's going to announce itself. And even we try to say winter start this time, and it be hot as.
Come on.
But all of a sudden, if they come, it be
shifts
below 13%, whatever it may be. It announces that I am here.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The situation will announce when it's time to leave. The situation will announce when it's time to shift and when it's time to change.
That's great.
Hopefully I answered the question.
Is there any more? All right, so that wraps it up, brother. Man, you have been phenomenal.
I'm
And
glad
I'm
to be here.
sure.
I'm so Thank you.
Man, and again, tell them where they can, go to follow you. Of course, he is on social media, so let them know all your links
Okay.
and how to access your book, and also follow your ministry as well.
Okay. I'm old school, so all I got is Facebook. All that Snapchat.
We got to get them on IG.
All that, I don't, that English, what that,
Instagram.
All that gram and stuff. Ain't no more gram is carrying on. All that Snapchat and all that stuff. I'm just on Facebook. You can find me at Terrance D. Pryor, TERRANCE D. Pryor, PRYOR. You can find that on social media. The ministry page, of course, I'm the pastor of Kingdom Believers Church, so Kingdom Believers Church is also the ministry page that is there on Facebook. I have a website, www.terrancepryor.com. You can get the book there off of the website. That's going to be the best avenue because I actually get a chance to autograph those particular books as they go out, and they're higher on Amazon than they are than getting them from me. You can get them from me for $15. If you go to Amazon, you're going to spend about $20 to get it. So
still not bad. It's well worth that. And I believe in my heart that it's going to be a great investment, whether you are spiritual or entrepreneur, whatever. I believe that the information, the insight that God is birthing through this young man is going to be a blessing to not just us here today, but many. And so, man, we thank God for you, brother. And again, we are honored and humbled to have you on our launching of this show.
I'm glad to be
Yes,
here.
sir.
I'm happy. I'm grateful. I'm
Yes,
honored,
sir.
and I am humbled for the invitation.
Thank you, brother. It's been a great pleasure having you, man.
You are.
Let's wrap this thing up. Until next time, life on the chair. No, I said life on the chair. Life behind the chair. Help me with Joni, the Lady Barber.